Valentine's Day is coming up really soon, so let's talk about some romance comedies that maybe you could watch with your loved ones or you could watch with a pizza, depends on you. Number 5 is Pretty Woman. This movie stars Julia Roberts and Richard Gere, and I believe that everybody who watches this movie and loves it is going to tell you that what they love the most about this movie is Julia Roberts. And the same goes to me, I also like Julia Roberts the most. There's a bird out there who keeps shouting. Doesn't matter. So Julia Roberts is really luminous in her role, and she really lights up every frame that she's in. And that bird is not stopping at all. It shows no signs of stopping. And what's really impressive about Julia Roberts in this role is that it doesn't demand a lot from her as an actress. It doesn't demand a lot of her acting chops. But she's still irreplaceable in this movie because this movie requires a very strong screen presence, and I think that Julia Roberts has a very strong screen presence that makes this film work. So without Julia Roberts, I think Pretty Woman just would not work at all. And Richard Gere as her romantic interest is really good too. He plays a more serious character, and his personality plays off Julia Roberts' character's personality very well. And Gary Marshall as a director, he's known for directing very melodramatic movies, and this one is no different, but his very melodramatic approach to directing really fits the story that Pretty Woman is trying to tell. Also, this is a very fairy tale-like movie, even though it's a movie about prostitutes. It's not as dirty as you think. Most of the time it's set in a very fairy tale world, and I like the setting of this fairy tale world, but at the same time it's also set in a real world. And number 4 is Four Weddings and a Funeral. That's a lot of 4 in the sentences. And Four Weddings and a Funeral, it's a great movie because of the way the narrative is structured. It shows the blossoming of a relationship through 5 incidents, 4 weddings and a funeral, hence the title of the movie. And you see how with each of these events you see the relationship slowly grow and grow and grow. And that narrative structure is what makes this movie really special to me. Of course, there's also Hugh Grant and Andy McDowell, which have amazing chemistry in this movie, and you really see how their relationship evolves throughout the movie, and they're just good in this movie. But it is really Richard Curtis' movie. He, as the director of this film, he really directs this movie with a dose of British humor in it, and very unique British style that you don't really see in American romance comedies at that time. It's the narrative structure, the direction by Richard Curtis, and of course Hugh Grant and Andy McDowell, 2 very charming actors. And when all this comes together, you get this very unique British flavored movie. And number 3 is Only You. This movie stars Marissa Tomei and Robert Downey Jr. And why I always mention the cast first and foremost before anything else is because I think romance comedies rely heavily on the cast. It's really important that the cast have good chemistry and are very charming. And that's what's going on in this movie. After so many years of having seen this movie the first time, I think I like this movie more and more every time I think about it. At first, this movie would be like at number 6 or number 7, but now it's at number 3 because I just love this movie so much. And at first, I didn't really realize some of the things that this movie was trying to say, and now I realize that this movie actually makes some pretty good arguments about the one true love concept. Is it true that everybody only has one true love in this world, and if you miss that one true love, you're never gonna find true love anymore? Some people are going to agree, some people are not going to agree. This movie doesn't necessarily give you answers because this isn't a question that has an absolute answer, but this movie offers up some pretty good arguments, and that is something that I did not realize the first time around. Of course, back to the cast, Marissa Tomei and Robert Downey Jr. have so good chemistry that they just reunited in the Spider-Man movies, and instantly you could feel the sexual tension when they met in Spider-Man. And that same sexual tension was also existent in Only You, and I think that is even stronger in Only You, because this whole movie is just about Robert Downey Jr. and Marisa Tomei falling in love. So this whole movie is just endless amounts of sexual tension. Also, both of these characters or both of these actors play very well on their public persona. Marisa Tomei plays this sweet, naive, innocent girl, and Robert Downey Jr. plays this really charming and rapid fire dialogue, womanizing man. And both of them are just playing their public personas. They're not really straying too far away from the roles that they usually play. But they play their personas very well, and they both of them have really good chemistry, so it doesn't really matter. They're just having fun and we're having fun, and they take us on a trip through Rome. You know what's another movie that takes us on a trip through Rome? At number 4 is Roman Holiday, a movie that's referenced in Only You too. This movie stars Audrey Hepburn, and Audrey Hepburn really is the shining star in this movie. This is what I consider to be the greatest Audrey Hepburn movie out there, and Audrey Hepburn is my favorite actress, so I have seen a lot of her movies, but nothing beats Roman Holiday. She's really playful in this movie, but at the same time really graceful, which I think is a very quintessential part of the Audrey Hepburn persona. A lot of what people remember from her roles comes from Roman Holiday, her personality in her character in that role. And Gregory Peck is really good too as her romantic interest, but really this is Audrey Hepburn's show, and she is so charming and playful and graceful as she leads us on a journey through Rome. Also, she actually causes a lot of trouble in this movie, more than you might actually expect, and I find that really amusing to see Audrey Hepburn causing a lot of trouble everywhere she goes. But of course, it's all in good fun. Nobody gets hurt. Okay, actually people do get hurt, but nobody actually gets hurt, if you know what I mean. So it's mostly just in good fun as you go along on this ride. And what I liked about this movie also is a really unconventional ending. It might not be the ending you expect, and I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm just saying it's not the ending that you might expect from a movie that's released at that time in that genre. And number 1 is 500 Days of Summer. Now, compared to all the other movies I mentioned earlier, this one is the one that's least suitable to be a date movie. This isn't the kind of movie that you would want to watch with your other half necessarily. Unless you have seen all the other movies that I've mentioned, then maybe you could give this one a try, because this one isn't a very traditional romance comedy by any means. It's not about the blossoming of romance like Four Weddings and a Funeral. Instead, it's about how a romance goes from being good to being sour, and at last how that romance slowly falls apart. So no, it's not the kind of movie you want to watch with your date, unless you want to have an examination of a breakup in real time, in real life, which I don't think you want. But you can experience it through this movie, and this movie really takes you into the mind of the main character. You really see things through the eyes of the main character. What I mean by this is, sometimes you get these really cool little visual tricks, and they are meant to show you what the character is thinking, what the main character is thinking. And all these other characters, they have their own personalities, but you only see their personalities through the eyes of the main character, and sometimes their personalities get a little bit twisted. You don't know if it's true or not, because you're only depending on the main character alone, and it's only on his perspective alone. Also, Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays the main character really well, especially in scenes where he's supposed to express feelings of despair and hopelessness. That's when he's at his best. He's really good in those scenes, and you can really feel like the negativity of the character just practically leaking off the screen. He's also really good at making certain transformations. You see how his face changes throughout the breakup. You see how his expressions are before the breakup, and you see how it is after the breakup, and it's really impressive how he performs the entire process of a breakup. So those are my 5 favorite romance comedies.